Hi guys, let's hear something horror from us.
Beijing's Jewel Station. Everyone who went down came back insane. The madness spread first. In the North Sea, there is a fish. When they arrived at the research site, it was deserted. A deep, bottomless abyss appeared within the empty camp. Everyone who descended into it returned with madness. Every single one came back, utterly deranged. We set up a new research station. At first, everything went smoothly. But then, 2 weeks ago, the base suddenly received a message. Run. Don't come down here. The base immediately tried to get more details, but 24 hours passed, with no response. All members of the research team had gone off the grid. A nearby research team sent people to check. But all they found was an empty camp. And in the center of the camp, there was a strange ice hole about 2 meters in diameter. At the same time, the camp's radio was intermittently broadcasting bizarre messages. Something was still breathing. A giant bird had turned into a fish. Bronze cities grew out of the magma. Run, don't come down here. Judging from the signal, I wanted to go down. But down where? In the Arctic. There's nothing but icebergs and sea. The answer was obvious. Soon, an unmanned diving robot was sent into the ice hole. But not long after, the device lost its signal. With no other choice, 2 research members decided to dive into the ice hole themselves to find out what was going on. But something went wrong after they went down. Only one of the 2 returned. And the one who came back was mentally deranged. He was completely consumed by madness. To find clues about my brother's disappearance, I went to the psychiatric hospital. At the entrance of the ward, I met Professor Zhang Songtao. Professor Zhang is a marine biologist. He was also my brother's mentor. Professor Zhang, how is Wang Tao doing? He has suffered a severe shock. We can't get anything out of him. Is it okay to visit him now? Professor Zhang hesitated, but finally nodded. When I entered the room, I was hit by a strange, distinctive smell. It was a mix of fishy odor and osmanthus flowers. Wang Tao's body had been covered with some kind of sticky substance when he was pulled from the ice. The smell I detected was the residue of that substance. As for the composition of the substance, it was preliminarily identified as the excretion of an unknown organism. At that moment, Wang Tao suddenly fell off the bed and began convulsing. It's cold, so cold. Finally, he struggled to utter a few words. Under the clouds. Oil. What oil? I leaned in closer to listen carefully. But before I could hear a response, Wang Tao suddenly bent over and vomited a mass of star-yellow oily material. His body stiffened, and he stopped moving. A panicked Professor Zhang rushed in. When he saw the scene, his pupils shrank. He stared intently at the vomit. It looks so familiar. Professor Zhang was visibly shaken. He pulled out a pair of rubber gloves and cautiously sealed the vomit in a bag. What does it look like? I asked. With excitement all over his face, Professor Zhang replied, "Let me run some tests first. I'll tell you the results later." Before I could reply, he quickly left the hospital. 2 days later, the main base organized an expedition to investigate the Arctic. Due to my brother's involvement, I was part of the 7th expedition team. We boarded an icebreaker heading for the Arctic. Shortly after boarding, Professor Zhang knocked on my cabin door. He seemed much more energized. This trip to the Arctic is going to make history. You know the description of Kun from Zhuangzi's Xiao Yao Yu, right? Yes, I know, but how is that related to the yellowish substance Wang Tao vomited? In Xiao Yao Yu, it begins with, "In the North Sea, there is a fish." That fish is called Kun. You well read. So, where do you think the North Sea refers to? I paused and thought about it. In historical documents, there are varying accounts of the North Sea. Some say it refers to the Bohai Sea. Others say Lake Baikal, or even the North Sea of Beijing. Then, of course, there's the Arctic Ocean. A light bulb went off in my head. "Professor, do you mean the Arctic Ocean?" "Exactly." Professor Zhang nodded confidently. "Xiao Yao Yu is real. Under the Arctic lies a giant fish. Everything can be proven. Your brother's message mentioned the giant bird becomes a fish. That's referring to the Kunpeng." He grew more excited as he spoke. His face even turned red. The missing researchers must have encountered this legendary creature. I found it hard to believe, but such a creature. Does it really exist in reality? It exists. It must exist. The substance Wang Tao vomited is a piece of fat. Its energy content was nearly 100 times that of ordinary tissue. Only a creature of that size could have such potent fat. I was taken aback. "Professor, are you certain?" Professor Zhang pulled out a file and placed it on the table. 10 years ago, I saw it. My heart skipped a beat. He had really witnessed this legendary creature? This kind of creature defies science. "I'm not sure either," Professor Zhang said regretfully. "I only saw it from a distance in the sea." He then recounted what happened years ago. 10 years ago, Professor Zhang was studying Arctic marine life and found a large seal trapped under the ice. As the situation grew urgent, the research team decided to break the ice. But just as the ice was about to be shattered, a massive shadow appeared beneath the deep sea. Standing on the ice, the sense of human insignificance was overwhelming. As he spoke, Professor Zhang trembled with fear. The dozens of tons of seal was instantly sucked away by some terrifying force. In just a moment, it vanished without a trace. I thought for a moment, then shared my own guess. Could it have been a giant blue whale? Impossible. Professor Zhang pulled a yellowed lab report from his file. "This is from the sample I collected with a harpoon when I dared to take a shot." I took the report and studied it closely. Then I compared it to the report on the yellowish substance. They were identical. I tried to stay calm. Based on the current information, the only logical conclusion was that it might be a giant sea creature or a dense school of fish. Professor Zhang scoffed and walked away. When you get to the Arctic, you'll understand. Watching him leave, my expression darkened. Professor Zhang was a well-respected scientist, known for his rigor in the field. But the information he just shared was not convincing. So why was he so certain? Could he be hiding something? I took out my notebook from my jacket pocket and marked Professor Zhang's name. In this notebook, I had compiled all the clues about the incident. After a quick scan, my eyes stopped on one phrase. Something is still breathing. The giant bird becomes a fish. Lava gives birth to bronze cities. This was the only clue my brother had left behind. When I saw this message, I couldn't help but tremble. It wasn't fear, nor was it sadness. It was pure excitement from deep within, because this message was meant specifically for me. I looked up into the sky and whispered, "For hundreds of generations, our family has pursued this mystery. And now, the truth will finally be revealed."